May 1999, a 14-year-old girl walked into a Hong Kong police station with tears streaming down her face. She told officers she was being haunted by a ghost. They dismissed her at first until she revealed something that would change everything. She said the ghost was screaming for its head back. And she knew exactly where to find it. The three officers, Chu Ka-sui, Sin Tim-hwa, and Andrew Yip Yanling, made a decision that would lead them into one of Hong Kong's most horrific crime scenes. They followed the girl. What they found inside that apartment would become known as the Hello Kitty murder, one of the most disturbing cases in Hong Kong's criminal history. A case so brutal, so twisted, that it would haunt everyone who touched it. But before we walk through that door, we need to understand whose skull in the Hello Kitty doll they were about to find. We need to know the woman behind the nightmare. Behind every nightmare lies a human story. This one belongs to Fan Man-yee. 23 years old in 1999, Fan had never known easy days. Abandoned as a child in Shenzhen, she grew up in a Hong Kong orphanage that expelled her at 15. Homeless, she fell into drug addiction and prostitution. At 21, she married a client, a violent drug addict. Neighbors heard screams through thin walls. In November 1998, she gave birth to a son, and something shifted. She wanted better for him. Fan quit drugs, left prostitution, escaped her abusive husband. She took a hostess job at the Empress Karaoke Club, trying to build a legitimate life. But desperation drove her to one choice that would seal her fate: the theft that sparked a horror. In early 1999, Fan Man-yee stole a wallet from one of her regular clients. The wallet contained approximately 4,000 Hong Kong dollars, roughly $500 US. It seemed like a simple theft, a desperate act by a struggling mother. But nothing about this crime is what it looks like. The wallet belonged to Fan Man-lok, a 33-year-old member of the Wo-shing-wo triad. With a history of drug trafficking convictions, Chan was not a man to be crossed. When he discovered the theft, his rage was immediate and calculated. He confronted Fan and demanded not only the return of his money but an additional 10,000 Hong Kong dollars as compensation. Fan returned the stolen cash immediately, but she couldn't produce the rest. Chan gave her time to pay, time that would become her prison sentence. On March 17, 1999, Fan Man-yee's life as she knew it ended. 3 men and a 14-year-old girl arrived at her apartment in the Fuyu section of Lai Yu Estate. The men were Chan Man-lok himself, 21-year-old Lung Wai-lun, and Lung Xing-cho. The girl, known in court records only as Ah Fong, was Chan's grooming victim, described as his girlfriend, but more likely another one of his prostitutes. They took Fan to an apartment on Granville Road in Sim Sha Sui, a 5-bedroom flat rented by Chan. His plan initially was practical from a criminal's perspective: force Fan to work as a prostitute to pay off her debt. But what happened inside that apartment over the next month was anything but practical. For 30 days, Fan Man-yee endured unimaginable suffering. What began as debt collection transformed into something far more sinister: a festival of cruelty that seemed to feed on its own momentum. The 3 men, high on methamphetamine, subjected Fan to systematic torture that escalated with each passing day. She was beaten with metal bars, strung up, and used as a human punching bag. On one occasion, she was kicked in the head approximately 50 times while Ah Fong watched and then joined in. Spices were rubbed into her open wounds to intensify the pain. Hot candle wax was dripped onto her legs and feet. Molten plastic was poured onto her skin, burning through flesh until she could no longer walk. She was forced to consume human waste. Through it all, she was required to smile, to tell her captors she enjoyed the beatings. If she refused, the torture became even more severe. Nothing about her situation was what it looked like from the outside. To the world, Fan Man-yee had simply disappeared. Inside that apartment, she was being systematically destroyed. Between April 14 and April 15, 1999, Fan Man-yee's body finally surrendered. Some sources claim she died while her captors were out. Others say she died overnight, locked in the bathroom where they had confined her. By the time of her death, her face was so swollen it was unrecognizable. Her gums bled continuously. Her body was covered in blisters, wounds, and pus. Medical experts would later speculate that she died from traumatic shock. Her body simply gave up under the weight of sustained torture. When her captors discovered her corpse, they faced a problem. They were in one of the most densely populated cities in the world. Living in a tiny apartment in a crowded neighborhood, disposing of a body in Hong Kong is not like disposing of one in rural Canada or the Australian outback. There's nowhere to hide. So they devised a plan that would give this case its infamous name. The three men moved Fan's body to the bathtub. They drained the blood. They dismembered her with a saw, separating limbs and organs. Then they began to cook the remains, boiling her body parts in pots and hot water in the bathroom in an attempt to destroy evidence. Most of the remains were placed in plastic bags and disposed of at a garbage station. Some internal organs were simply thrown out the window onto a canopy below. But they kept her skull. Fan Man-yee used a kerosene stove to boil Fan's head in the room. Once the flesh had been removed, they took a mermaid-shaped Hello Kitty doll, the beloved Sanrio character known for innocence and childhood joy, and cut it open. They removed some of the cotton stuffing and inserted Fan's half-cooked skull inside, along with dead insects. Then they sewed the doll closed. The apartment, investigators would later discover, was decorated wall-to-wall with Hello Kitty merchandise, bedsheets, curtains, towels, and eating utensils. A macabre shrine to the character that now housed a woman's skull. For over a month, no one reported Fan Man-yee missing. No one searched for her. Her violent husband didn't care. Her family had abandoned her decades earlier. She had simply vanished into the darkness of Hong Kong's criminal underworld. Another invisible victim. But 14-year-old Ah Fong couldn't escape what she had witnessed. After Fan's death, she began having nightmares. And this is the girl who reported to the police we talked about in the star of the video. She attended a girls' reform school, and the nightmares became so severe that she suffered what staff described as a nervous breakdown. She became convinced that Fan's headless ghost was haunting her, appearing in her dreams night after night. With the help of the school's social worker, Ah Fong went to the Yau Ma Tei police station on May 24, 1999. She told officers about the torture, the murder, and the Hello Kitty doll. 3 police officers, Chu Ka-sui, Sin Tim Hua, and Andrew Yip Yanling from the Yau Ma Tei Police Division, followed the girl back to the apartment on Granville Road. Inside, they found exactly what she had described: a plastic bag containing Fan Man-yee's skull, 1 tooth, and several internal organs. The skull was sewn inside the Hello Kitty mermaid doll, just as Ah Fong had said. The apartment reeked of decomposition and bore silent witness to the horrors that had unfolded there. Fan Man-yee was arrested first. At the time, he was living with his wife, Si Pui Ling, and their newborn baby in an apartment in Shak Lei Estate. SWAT officers raided the residence in the early morning hours of May 28. His wife was briefly suspected of involvement, but was released when no evidence linked her to the crime. When news of the murder reached the media through a Macau-based newspaper, Leon Y. Lun fled to mainland China. He remained at large for 9 months, eventually landing on Interpol's most wanted list. On February 14, 2000, authorities caught him in Guangxi after irregularities were found in his passport. He was extradited to Hong Kong on February 17 to face trial. Fan's skull was identified on June 3, 1999, using a photo overlapping method at Lockhart Mortuary. The remains of Fan Man-yee, what little was left, were finally confirmed. The trial began on October 20, 2000, at the Court of First Instance in Hong Kong, presiding Justice Peter Nguyen. It lasted 6 weeks and captivated the city. Ah Fong testified against the 3 men in exchange for immunity, detailing the month of torture in horrifying detail. Chan's wife, Fan's husband, and Fan's aunt also took to stand. Fan Man-yee and Leong Xingzhou denied killing Fan, though they did not deny dismembering her body. Their defense hinged on a technical argument. Without more of Fan's remains, prosecutors couldn't definitively prove cause of death. She could have died from a methamphetamine overdose, they argued, or from starvation rather than from the torture itself. On December 7, 2000, after deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. By a vote of 6-3, the 8 men and 1 woman on the jury convicted the 3 defendants not of murder, but of manslaughter. The jury ruled that while Fan Man-yee had clearly died as a result of the abuse inflicted upon her, the state of her remains made it impossible to prove the men intended to kill her. Justice Peter Wen's words during sentencing echoed through the courtroom. Never in Hong Kong in recent years has a court heard of such cruelty, depravity, callousness, brutality, violence, and viciousness. The three men who tortured Fan Man-yee to death received life sentences with parole eligibility after 20 years. Shan Man-lok, 33, the Wo triad ringleader who orchestrated everything over a stolen wallet, remains incarcerated. Lo Wai-lun, 21, who fled to mainland China before capture, remains imprisoned in Stanley Prison. Long Sheng-cho, 26, had his conviction overturned on appeal in 2003. Retried, he received 18 years for manslaughter and was released in April 2014, but in August 2022, 8 years after his freedom. He was arrested and sentenced to 12 months for sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl. 14-year-old Ah Fong received immunity for her testimony and vanished into anonymity. Fan Man-yee's skull was kept at Kowloon Public Mortuary until the appeals process concluded. In March 2004, her birth family was finally notified. On March 26, 2004, her skull was cremated, giving her what little peace death could offer. The apartment building on Granville Road where she suffered and died was demolished in September 2012. In its place stands the Sir Ravit Hotel, where 3 Buddha portraits memorialize the woman whose name most have forgotten, but whose case Hong Kong will never forget. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe for more cases like this. See you in the next one.